Hello everyone. Tonight we will dive into a story. A story you can listen to when the rain patters outside your window, or when the cold wind sweeps across the empty fields. It begins like so many other stories, with someone searching for a little peace, a little quiet to escape the noise of the modern world. You know that feeling, don't you? That longing to disconnect, to breathe in fresh air, to find yourself again. But sometimes, in that very silence, we end up finding things we never wanted to see. Things that once seen will haunt us forever, never letting us go. The rain, you see, had fallen for 3 days and 3 nights. As I drove my old pickup truck down the muddy dirt road leading to the rental house, the crunch of tires on gravel, then the splatter of mud, were the only sounds breaking the stillness of the vast pine forest. I am Alara, a graphic designer long weary of skyscrapers and the blaring horns of the city. My reawakening project demanded absolute focus, a completely quiet soul. And the old wooden house I found on a secluded rental website, with its poetic name, Havenwood Retreat, seemed like the answer. It sat deep in the rolling hills of West Virginia, a place where even cell signals struggled to survive, let alone the internet. When I turned off the engine, the silence settled in, leaving only nature's symphony. The steady patter of rain on the tin porch roof, the wind whistling through the pine branches, and farther away, the low rumble of thunder, as if greeting me to this wilderness. The damp smell of earth, resinous pine, and a hint of something old and decayed filled the air. I inhaled deeply, trying to shake off the tension clinging to me. Here it is, Alara. Here is the peace you've been searching for, I told myself. The wooden house, with its faded planks and wide porch, looked just like the photos. But something felt different. The front screen door, once painted mint green, was now peeling, swinging and creaking in the wind. No light shone from inside, though I was certain I had confirmed the check-in time. A small unease crept into my chest. But I brushed it aside, probably just because this place was so remote. I retrieved the key from beneath a stone carved with an owl, just as the instructions had said. The rattle of the old lock sounded unnervingly loud in the silence. As I pushed the main door, a long, eerie creak rang out, as if the house itself were groaning. Inside, the air was cold and thick with the smell of mildew and age. The furniture was draped in white sheets, standing like ghosts in the dim light filtering through the dusty windows. I switched on my phone flashlight, sweeping it across the spacious living room. Dark wooden walls, a large stone fireplace, and an old velvet-covered sofa. I began setting down my luggage, trying to make myself feel more at ease. Though the quiet here was somewhat suffocating, I still thought I would adapt. After all, this was where I would find the focus I needed for my project. I walked around the house, exploring each room. The small kitchen, with its dark wooden cabinets and old ceramic dinnerware. The main bedroom on the ground floor with a worn 4-poster bed and a thick quilt. A narrow wooden staircase led to the upper floor where there were 2 more bedrooms and a small workspace. I decided to turn the attic room into my studio. When I reached the upper floor, the wooden floor creaked loudly beneath my feet. The room I chose as my studio had a window overlooking the forest, where the tall pines stretched toward the sky, like gnarled fingers trying to touch the gray heavens. I set my laptop and equipment on the desk, beginning to arrange them. This would be my creative sanctuary. The sun began to set, staining the sky in somber shades of orange and purple. The light slowly faded, and the house sank into darkness. I decided to go to bed early, hoping that a good night's sleep would drive away the vague unease. But as I lay in bed, a soft thud, as if something had just been gently placed down, echoed from downstairs. I lay motionless, my heart pounding. Probably just the old house, settling, I reassured myself. Maybe the wind, or a branch hitting the roof. But then I heard it again, once more, and then again. A rhythmic sound, almost like footsteps. I tiptoed to the stairs, straining to listen, The sound had stopped, but now another sound arose. A faint scratching, like fingernails, raking against wood coming from behind the wall. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" Only silence answered. I forced a nervous laugh, trying to dispel the fear rising inside me. "I'm overreacting," I told myself. Probably just the imagination of a writer searching for inspiration. That night. I turned on all the lights, trying to read myself to sleep. But every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind outside made me jolt upright, heart racing. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, dispelling the fears of the night before. I felt foolish for letting my imagination run, so wild. I brewed myself a strong cup of coffee and dove into work, determined to make up for the lost time. But as the day dragged on, small things kept pulling me out of my thoughts. A door I swore I had left open was now tightly shut. A book fell from the shelf when I wasn't looking. And always, that unshakable feeling of being watched. By mid-afternoon, I could no longer ignore the sense that something was wrong. I decided to thoroughly check the house, if only to calm myself. I began with the basement, a damp space thick with cobwebs that made me shiver. As I swept my flashlight across the room, something caught my attention. A section of the wall that looked different. The bricks didn't quite match the rest. My heart hammered. I moved closer. Looking carefully, I saw that the mortar was newer. Not weathered like the surrounding bricks. With trembling hands, I pressed on it. To my horror, it shifted slightly. I stumbled back, my mind in turmoil. What was behind that wall? And more importantly, who had sealed it? I rushed upstairs, my thoughts a storm of terror and curiosity. Should I call the police? The Airbnb host? But what would I say? That I had a gut feeling something sinister was hidden behind the basement wall? When night fell, I paced the living room, debating my next move. That was when I heard the footsteps again, but this time they didn't come from below. They came from the attic. My blood froze. I knew I should run, get in the car, and drive far away from here. But something kept me. I needed to know. To understand what was happening in this house. With trembling hands, I grabbed a heavy candlestick from the fireplace and climbed the stairs leading to the attic. Each step creaked under my weight, announcing my presence to whatever was waiting above. The attic was pitch black, my flashlight beam barely piercing the darkness. Dust motes danced in the light, stirred by my presence. And by something else. In the far corner, something moved. A shadow darker than the surrounding night, shifting and writhing. "Who's there?" I called, my voice reduced to a whisper. The shadow froze. Then slowly it began to take form. A hunched, twisted figure turned to face me. I glimpsed pale, sunken eyes, skin stretched tight over bone. I screamed, stumbling, my foot catching on something that sent me crashing to the floor. The candlestick slipped from my hand, rolling into the darkness. The figure moved toward me, its motions jerky and unnatural. I scrambled back, my hand grasping something cold and metallic. The flashlight. I swung it up, the beam striking the figure's face. What I saw froze my blood. It wasn't human. No longer human. Its face was a grotesque mask of decay, skin mottled and peeling. But its eyes were still alive, brimming with a hunger that chilled me to the marrow. "You shouldn't be here," it rasped, its voice like sandpaper scraping stone. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare, a hallucination born of stress and lack of sleep. The creature took another step forward, its joints cracking with every movement. "This is our home," it hissed. "You are not welcome here." Our home. The words echoed in my mind, and suddenly, with horror, I understood. The sealed wall in the basement. The constant feeling of being watched. This creature, whatever it wasn't alone. As if to confirm my realization, I heard more movement from the darkness behind old boxes and furniture. More figures emerged, each as twisted and decayed as the first. I found my voice then, a scream tearing from my throat as I scrambled to my feet. I ran, blind with terror, stumbling down the attic stairs and through the house. Behind me, I could hear them. The slap of heavy footsteps and the rasp of labored breaths. They were following me, hunting me, through the very house that was supposed to be my refuge. I reached the front door, yanking hard at the handle. It didn't budge, locked. When had it been locked, I fumbled at the bolt, my fingers clumsy with fear. They were closer now. I could feel their cold breath on my neck, hear their nails scraping the walls. At last, by some stroke of luck, the lock gave way. I burst out into the cold night air, not daring to look back as I sprinted to my truck. The engine roared and I sped down the driveway, gravel spraying behind me. In the rearview mirror, I caught one final glimpse of the wooden house. Figures stood at every window, their pale faces watching as I fled. I drove through the night, not stopping until the sun began to rise. Only then, in the harsh light of day, did I allow myself to think about what had happened. I never went back to that wooden house. I left a vague review on the rental site, warning others of strange noises and an unsettling atmosphere. But how could I explain the truth? Sometimes, late at night, I still hear those footsteps. Still feel those eyes watching me from the darkness. And I wonder with a chill down to my bones whether I truly escaped. Or did I somehow bring a piece of that house's horror back with me? Because in those moments between sleep and waking, when the world is at its stillest, I swear I can hear a rasping, hungry, all too familiar voice whisper, "You are not welcome here." Weeks have passed since that night, but the fear clings to me like a shadow. I moved to a new apartment, in another city trying to start over, but the scars of Havenwood Retreat remain etched deep in my mind and soul. Every time I hear the wind howl outside the window, or the sudden creak of the apartment, my heart races wildly. I can't stop looking over my shoulder, always waiting. My friends and family have started to worry. They say I look exhausted, paranoid. They suggest therapy, medication. But how can I explain? How can I make them understand the terror stalking me day and night? Months passed. I lost my job. My relationships crumbled. I became a hollow shell of who I once was. Always looking over my shoulder. Always waiting for the moment when the lights would go out. And it would come for me again. And then, one night it happened. I was curled up in my new apartment, every light blazing, when suddenly the power went out. In the sudden darkness, I heard that familiar laugh. "Ready to play?" the voice asked. Closer than ever. This time, I didn't run. I was too tired of running, too tired of fear. Instead, I stood up, facing the darkness that had haunted me for so long. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice unexpectedly calm. The darkness seemed to condense, forming that tall, gaunt figure I knew too well. Its eyes glowed, staring at me with a terrifying intensity that froze me to my core. "Want?" it repeated, sounding almost surprised. "My dear, I don't want anything from you. I am you, the part you've always tried to ignore, the darkness you've always feared." As it spoke, a chill of realization swept through me. The voice, it was my voice distorted and twisted, but undeniably mine. "No," I whispered, but even as I denied it, I knew it was true. The long nights of self-doubt, the fears I tried to bury, the parts of myself I tried to hide, they had come alive. The figure stepped closer, its edges blurring, melting into the shadows around us. "Embrace me," it said, reaching out with hands both familiar and strange. "Stop running. Accept who you really are." I stood trembling as the darkness closed in. For a moment I thought of surrendering, of letting it consume me. But then I remembered the fear, the helplessness I had felt that first night, and the months of horror that followed. And I made a choice. "No," I said again, this time with determination. "You are not me. You are what I fear I might become. But I choose differently." I reached out, not in fear but with determination, and flipped the light switch. The room flooded with sudden, blinding light. The figure before me wavered, its form dissolving like smoke in the wind. But before it vanished completely, I saw something. In its glowing eyes, not anger, not disappointment, but relief. As the last wisps of darkness faded, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The oppressive sense of being watched, the constant fear, all of it was gone. I stood there in my brightly lit apartment, breathing deeply, feeling as if for the first time in many months. The darkness was still there, of course. It would always be there. But now I understood. It wasn't something to fear or to fight. It was a part of me, to be acknowledged and accepted. From that night on, I slept with the lights off, and when I heard that familiar scratching, that rasping laughter in the dark, I didn't run, I didn't hide. I simply said, I see you, I accept you, but you don't control me. And in the silence that followed, I found peace. But sometimes when I look out the window on a rainy night, I can't help but wonder, is this peace truly real? Or is it just another veil concealing a deeper, darker truth? Do those ancient forests, those old houses, still hold secrets that we, as humans, can never truly comprehend? And can we ever truly escape the darkest parts of ourselves or of the world we live in? Thank you for listening tonight. Sweet dreams.